Welcome back to True Unseen Crime, where we peel back the layers of the most unsettling cases, like discovering what happens when you mix low-budget horror films with a kid's birthday party. Today, we're delving into a heart-stopping saga that combines betrayal, desperation, and a father's relentless quest against an insidious criminal ring. Buckle up and get comfy as we unravel the harrowing tale of Matthew Collins and his father, Brian Collins, who dared to tangle with the underbelly of the drug trade. Our story begins in a quaint suburban town, where life seemed idyllic until fate threw a hefty curveball. Matthew Collins, an ambitious 18-year-old, was just one misstep away from a promising future when a simple act of helping a friend resulted in a prison sentence. He unwittingly found himself in possession of a package filled with illegal drugs, a reality check with a 10-year pinch of mandatory time that no one could have seen coming. Talk about an unexpected plot twist. Matthew's father, Brian, a respected businessman with a penchant for charity work, felt his world shatter. Watching his son dragged away felt like seeing a favorite coffee cup slip and shatter on the floor, disheartening and completely unexpected. "This can't be happening," he raged, channeling the fury of a father bear whose cub had been taken. Days turned into sleepless nights filled with strategizing and soul-searching, culminating in a desperate plan that would plunge him deep into the shadows. In a moment of raw emotion, Brian suggested, "What if I go undercover? I can expose the real criminals behind this and save you, son." The hope in his voice was palpable, but even the FBI began looking at him like he'd just suggested hosting a party for vampires at high noon. "Are you seriously considering this?" one agent asked with a raised eyebrow. "This isn't exactly a game of Monopoly, Mr. Collins." But, undeterred, Brian was willing to risk everything to save his son. He began the transformation from businessman to undercover operative, trading in his Gucci loafers for nondescript sneakers that fit surprisingly well in the dimly lit back rooms adorned with graffiti and dangerous men. His initiation into this treacherous world led him into a labyrinth of shadowy dealings, where he discovered a harsh truth. Loyalty was as valuable as a hidden stash of cash and equally as rare. The FBI had warned Brian that he was entering dangerous territory, but he thought, how bad could it possibly be? Little did he know, he was about to tiptoe through a minefield while juggling flaming torches. His first major lead? Rumors of La Sombra, the elusive drug lord feared more than taxes by college students. La Sombra, whose name translated to the shadow, operated in darkness, thriving in chaos. After weeks of painstaking undercover work, Brian finally found himself face-to-face with La Sombra. It was a showdown that felt as electrifying as a championship game. Only instead of sweaty athletes, it was filled with adrenaline junkies and criminals who lacked a moral compass. Brian's nerve-wracking negotiation turned into a twisted chess match, filled with veiled threats and puffed chests. However, when betrayed by an undercover agent within his ranks, the pieces of his plan unraveled quicker than a poorly knitted sweater. While Brian was busy evading La Sombra's wrath, the police found themselves tangled in a web of failures that could rival any low-rated crime drama. With multiple officers involved, the investigation quickly became like herding cats. Organizing, coordinating, and finding their footing was a frustrating exercise. They chased leads that vanished faster than you could say, "Where's Waldo?" As the police attempted to piece together the scattered clues of the drug operation, Brian worked diligently, secretly gathering evidence. Yet, every time he sent updates to the authorities, they were met with skepticism and frustration. "This is all a bit circumstantial, isn't it?" the lead investigator scoffed during a meeting where coffee cups were consumed at an alarming rate. The reality was that the investigation was turning into a nightmarish game of telephone. Officer Jake, known for his questionable judgment and penchant for daydreaming, misinterpreted tips and led the department on wild goose chases, once even detouring to a taco truck after mishearing drugs as "who's got the hot sauce." The overwhelmed police department got caught in an avalanche of leads that were more slippery than a politician on the campaign trail. Brian's attempts to contact the police became increasingly ravenous. Frustrated, he thought, "What are they doing? Playing bingo?" He wrestled with the notion that Every second wasted might endanger his son's life and escalate the situation with criminals who weren't known for their patience. As Brian navigated the treacherous waters of the underworld, he faced dangers more pronounced than an emotional teenager on the brink of a meltdown. From dodging bullets during a drug deal gone bad to slipping through the fingers of La Sombra's henchmen, each day was an adrenaline-fueled horror movie where the stakes were higher than Brian ever anticipated. In a shocking twist, Brian discovered a mole within the police department feeding La Sombra vital information. It was more alarming than discovering your neighbor has been serving house salad made from their backyard clippings. Just when he thought he had things figured out, betrayal lurked closer than he'd ever imagined. Feeling the heat closing in, Brian raced against time to warn the authorities of the precarious situation. However, due to the communication breakdown and lackluster coordination among police units, the message never reached anyone in time, considering it seemed like half the department was stuck in their own version of Lost, much like the lead officer's sense of urgency. Meanwhile, back in prison, Matthew was becoming aware that the walls of his reality were closing tighter around him every day. He received unexpected letters from his father, each filled with hope but laced with impending doom. "I'm working on something big, Matthew. Stay strong. I'll be coming for you." But he couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping through his fingers, and he feared for his father's safety more than his own. After weeks of relentless chasing shadows and uncovering betrayals, the police finally made a move, but it was too late. Brian, knowing that his son's life depended on one final act of bravery, decided to confront La Sombra directly. In a tense meeting where the air was so thick you could cut it with a knife, Brian came face to face with his worst nightmare. He felt like a character in a pivotal scene, perhaps a hero, but possibly just bait. While the police mobilized for what they believed was a coordinated raid, Brian was spinning a web above their heads, hoping against hope that he could escape unscathed. But chaos erupted as La Sombra's henchmen launched an ambush. Gunfire rang out, and in an instant, everything exploded into a cacophony of terror. In the ensuing mayhem, Brian fought valiantly but ultimately found himself cornered. The police arrived, but it was like watching a slow-motion car crash, tragically inevitable. The raid turned into a chaotic free-for-all, with officers unexpectedly drawing fire, and Brian's attempted rescue of Matthew was thwarted. As bullets flew and adrenaline surged, Brian's desperate pleas echoed in the air. "Matthew, I'm coming for you," echoed in the fray, but the chaos swallowed his words whole. The police, amidst the chaos, grappled with the confusion, trying to manage the crisis while also searching for the perpetrator. Talk about a day gone wrong. The raid concluded with Brian barely escaping, yet the police's inability to effectively coordinate meant that they missed La Sombra entirely. Instead, the notorious drug lord slipped through their fingers like a bar of soap, leaving behind no trace except a lingering sense of horror among the authorities. After this life-changing, chaotic incident, the fallout was immense. The police found themselves facing embarrassing headlines that blasted their incompetence. As for Brian, he was temporarily left in emotional limbo, grappling with failure but still determined to save his son. In desperation, he sought assistance from detectives who had previously expressed doubt. "You can't quit now. Matthew is counting on us," he barked, but convincing the higher-ups was more challenging than reasoning with a toddler. Brainstorming a final, daring rescue plan, Brian knew he only had one shot left. This was it. Time to pull out all the stops and make sure Matthew didn't become just another statistic in the never-ending war on drugs. As the tension built, Brian went further underground than a conspiracy theorist searching through the internet's darkest corners. With minimal resources and clarity around him, he made contact with loyal associates in the criminal world, individuals who weren't ready to sell him down the river. They understood the stakes, having known La Sombra for too long, and composed a plan to draw him out. Ultimately, the evening of the final showdown arrived, bringing with it a mix of horror and thrill. But the police were alerted too late. Even with the best intentions, their preparation remained ineffective in the chaos, leading to yet another embarrassing spectacle. With everything on the line, Brian and his unlikely allies were prepared to face La Sombra one last time. As the lights flickered hungrily above, Brian took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment where courage would be measured against fear. Would he succeed or falter into darkness, where betrayal and desperation whispered? With the tension in the air reaching a fever pitch, Brian's heart raced as he charged toward an encounter that could change everything. With the sound of sirens echoing far behind them and La Sombra closing in, they faced the storm together, determined not just to survive but to strike back against the betrayal that had haunted them for so long. In the end, Brian's act of bravery sparked a chain reaction that tested everyone involved, revealing the darkest corners of humanity, where love and loyalty blazed fiercely alongside treachery. As we wrap up this harrowing episode of True Unseen Crime, one poignant lesson emerges. Sometimes trees fall in the forest, and love fights through the shadows. The stakes are higher than we realize, and sometimes the truth remains elusive. Thanks for joining us on this whirlwind journey through betrayal and resilience, where a father's love attempted the impossible more than once. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You never know what lies in wait, whether it's the next gripping tale from the dark recesses of humanity or a lesson in jogging with poor coordination. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled. Life might be more thrilling than you expect.